Hi, I thought for this one we would do a quick drawing and show people how to draw a Spider-Man face and mask. First thing to do is draw his head, which you can think of it like an upside down egg. Now, a human head isn't exactly like that, but that's what you can start with and make it pretty simple. And you don't have to draw it. One thing when you're doing that is you don't draw hard lines until you're pretty sure where you're going to put things. So you can draw little sketchy lines and keep it loose until you have the shape that you decide you really want to go with. If that makes sense. Spider-Man's pretty simple. You have a couple choices. First thing I always think about when I'm drawing Spider-Man is I try to figure out kind of where his nose would be. And then you can draw, there's all kinds of eyes artists have used over the years, but you can basically do a V kind of down where that point of the nose would be. Actually, his nose would actually probably be like down in here. So maybe like the bridge of the nose where that would be. And then once you've drawn those V's, all you have to do is just loop down like that. Once you've looped down, you've got the basis of an eye. Do the same thing on the other side. Already you can see here I'm not exactly symmetrical, but we're just sketching and having fun, so it doesn't matter that much. And once you've done that, you have the basis for the eyes. Now these would be the lenses. Steve Ditko would always, he had like small eyes. I always kind of liked those. Always looked a little more natural than the big ones like some of the artists in the 90s would use. Like McFarlane would make the eyes almost as big as the head, but made it expressive, but always looked a little wacky to me. But make them however you want. And I am just doodling this thing out. They don't have to be perfect. And then you can just clean up your lines a little bit. My eraser a little bit bigger. There. And that's the basis of a Spider-Man head. Now the webs, I feel like people sometimes worry about the webs. They're pretty easy when you think about it. This center section here, he doesn't really have any webs that show up because it'd be complicated, but it's like dividing a pie, right? So you draw a line. Once again, I goofed that up a little bit. We'll just clean that up a little bit. And then we draw a line down here. So, and you put a little curve in it. It's kind of like, also think about a basketball. So if you think about a basketball, those lines go around and they curve, and his head is curved. But when you're looking straight on it like this, there's not a whole lot. Just add a little bit, and then you divide. Do the same thing again. Dividing a pie. And then some lines here. and here. And that's the basic lines of it. Now to put the webs in, they're basically U's is what I think of. They connect at the edges where the base is here, and they just zip over. And they don't have to be perfect when you're doodling. If you're doing an illustration or something, you'd want them to be perfect, but it's not what we're after here. And the density of them doesn't have to be. That's changed over the years. Some artists make a whole bunch of webs. Some artists make very few. Oh, I like that one. That's a little out of place. You think of it stretching over something like his head when it's going over like that. You know, they kind of get bigger. And straighten this out here where those are. Not too difficult. And then if you do his neck, they just come down like that. And same thing. Little U's. And see, even when I'm doodling, I'm not worrying too much about little loops and goof ups like that. It's not a big deal. We're just having fun. And that's Spider-Man. If his head was in perspective, think of it like that. You know, the eye would be on the side. And then you just change. This is a little bit more difficult, but think about dividing that up still, but it's a three-dimensional space, so you see more of the curve of the webbing. It kind of defines the form for you. You don't have to do a lot of other Spider-Man, his costume is kind of complex, actually. It looks deceptively simple when it all follows the same rules. There's some weird areas, like at the back of his head. When you're drawing that stuff, you just do the best like that. I probably missed what should have been a webbing. I always liked the old Steve Ditko when, he would draw Spider-Man. Well, he created Spider-Man, and he would draw him very skinny, which I always thought was cool. He wasn't a big hulking superhero like Superman or bulky like any of the others. Well, there you go. Have fun.